Right, is that going on?
Yes.
The pardon board is reconvening. We're at Louisiana State Penitentiary. Today is Monday, August 28th, 2023. The time is 11:59 a.m. With the staff at the penitentiary, please introduce yourself for the record.
Deputy Warden Tracy Falgood, Reservoir Admiral classification.
Carmen Shipley, offender records.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Harris, would you introduce yourself? Tell us your name and DOC number.
My name is Larry Harris,
And your
What's your-
DOC.
439955.
Mr. Harris, and I see you have some folks there in the room with you. I believe they're faxing over that information to us, so. Is there two people in the room there with you that will speak on your behalf? You want to give me their names?
Bobby Wallace,
Okay,
Suzette Harris,
Suzette Parrott, you said?
Harris.
Harris, I got it. Okay, and thank y'all for being here. I want to acknowledge the folks we have here at DOC headquarters with us. We have Jenna Cooley Chocobone. Did I say that correctly?
We might go by Jennifer.
Jenna Cooley. Okay, I can pronounce that. Okay, who will be speaking on your behalf. We also have Connice Alex Brown here at DOC headquarters, joining us on Zoom, not speaking, but joining us. Patrice Harris, Della Graham, Loanisha Howard, Lakeisha Norbert. Here in opposition today, in person, we have Betty Mack, Larry Wheeler, and Andre Maddox, all who will be speaking. Joining by Zoom, we have a representative from the DA's office, and then we have Vanessa Mack, Ronald Lewis, Curtis Mack, and Brenda Wheeler. So I'll read some identifying information into the record, Mr. Harris, after which I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Jackson. Your case has been assigned to her. After we finish the interview and hear from the warden, we'll hear from those folks who've indicated they want to speak. And at the very end, before we vote, you'll be allowed to make a statement if you'd like to do so. So, Mr. Harris, you're here this afternoon now. You're seeking a commutation of your sentence. You were sentenced in the 24th Judicial District in Jefferson Parish. You were sentenced May 2003 to a life sentence for a second-degree murder conviction. Is that information correct, Mr. Harris?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, would you answer Mrs. Jackson's questions?
Good afternoon, Mr. Harris.
Good afternoon.
How are you today?
I'm great, glory to God.
How old are you?
I'm 73,
Okay, when do you make 74?
June 3rd, 2024.
Okay, so I have you a year older than you actually are. Correct that. And how long have you been incarcerated in this case?
22 years.
22?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So that would have made you around 50 or 51 when this crime was committed, is that correct?
No, ma'am. I was 49 when it was committed.
Around 50, that's, close. You're classified as a first felony offender. So I'm curious as to what have you been doing up until the time that these crimes were committed? You've not been in any trouble. So what were you doing prior to the commission of this crime with your life?
I was working. I used to drive truck. I was delivering furniture. I was a furniture handler. I used to go out of town to deliver furniture. I was working for Neil Auction Company.
Okay. How much education did you have?
10 years.
You dropped out in the 10th grade?
Yes, ma'am. I went to the service.
All right, and what branch of the military did you serve?
United States Army,
And how long were you in the military?
a year and 11 months.
Okay, how did you end up leaving the military?
Honorable discharge.
Okay. And then you came home and started being a delivery driver or furniture handler?
So when I came home, I started working at the public grain
Okay,
elevator, and I was already married at the time.
okay, having children?
Yes, ma'am.
How many children do you have?
6.
You have a relationship with all 6 of your children?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you all have the same mother?
No, 4 of them, and 2 of them with a different mother.
There are 2 moms involved,
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
and you have a relationship with all 6 of those children?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
At the time of this offense, were you married or divorced?
I was divorced.
And who were you seeing? Who was your girl?
I was seeing Vanessa Mack.
And so tell us what happened on the day that these 3 people were shot. Walk us through what happened that day.
Well, earlier that day, Miss Vanessa Mack asked me to see about getting her car fixed. The muffler was messed up. So I brought her by one place and she said she didn't like it. So I went to another place and she brought her car there to have it fixed. And I paid for to have the muffler fixed. And I left from there and went to pick up some furniture. I had to take to Folsom, Louisiana. And later on that night, I got a phone call. Well, I was in a bar and a guy came in and said that Vanessa and Mr. Lewis and Miss Wheeler was at Sports Palace. It's a pool place. And I went there and
Okay, well, I'm gonna ask you some questions. Now, in your application, you said that Miss Mack was your ex-girlfriend. And you decided to try to get with her and work things out. So was had y'all broken up at that time? Because your words are, I was having some issues with my ex-girlfriend, Vanessa Mack. I decided to try and get with her and work things out. So explain that statement.
well, we was having a little difficulties, but we were still seeing each other. And she called me that day to get her car fixed. So we were still in relationship.
Okay. Well, how did you end up at the Sports Palace where she was?
Well, I was told that she was over there shooting pool. And when I went there,
Well, let me ask you this, when you got there, did you go into the Sports Palace?
no, ma'am.
Where did you go when you got there?
I seen her car
Okay.
and it was almost 12 o'clock, I think.
Mhm.
So they was just about on their way. When I left, they were just about on their way out.
Okay, but when you got there, where did you go?
Before I got there,
No, when you pulled into the parking lot of the
Yes, ma'am.
Sports Palace and got out of your vehicle, where did you go?
I went to see where I was going in to see if they was there, but her car was outside of the place, so I know she was in there. And I
Oh.
left go back to my car, they was coming out.
Okay, you went back to your car, is that what you said? Who was with you?
Leon Williams,
Why was he with you?
he was riding with me.
Okay. And when they came out of the sports palace, what did you do?
When I first came, they first came out the sports palace, I asked her, I said, what's going on? And she said nothing, and I lost it. I just,
Why would you lose it?
I don't,
Did you go to the sports palace armed?
well, yes, ma'am, I did.
You approached the vehicle that they were in while being armed? Did you have the weapon on?
Ma'am,
Did you have the weapon on you when you approached the vehicle?
no, ma'am, when I went back to my car,
Mm-hmm. Well, why would you go back to your car to get a weapon?
I just felt like I had been mistreated. You know, I just had got her car fixed, and
And she was out with another man,
yes, ma'am,
so that upset you.
very much.
And so as a consequence of that, both you and Mr. Williams shot the victim. So you shot Ronald Williams, right? Did you shoot Ronald Williams?
Ronald Lewis,
I'm sorry, Ronald Lewis.
ma'am,
Who shot Miss James?
ma'am, I don't know. I was shooting. I don't know who got shot, really. I mean, I know who got shot, but did,
So because your feelings were hurt, you walked up to this car and you pulled out a gun and you and Mr. Williams started shooting and 3 people got shot. 1 person died. 1 person was left quadriplegic in a wheelchair for the rest of his life, correct?
yes, ma'am.
Because your feelings were hurt. Now, your risk assessment is low, but so is your programming. You haven't taken a whole lot of programs over the last 23 years. You've done anger management, Malachi Dance, and 100 hours of pre-release, and then you've taken some faith-based programs, but you haven't taken a whole lot of other programs. Why is that? Why haven't you done more to work on yourself and try to address whatever it was that would cause you to just shoot all these people? Why haven't you
Well, I
taken?
also took,
Go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
also took trance analysis and experiencing God,
Saw
and I
that,
took a lot of seminars.
saw all of that. But I don't see a lot of other programs. I don't see victim awareness. I don't see thinking.
I'm in,
Okay, why are you just now taking victim awareness? You've been incarcerated for 22 years. You're just now taking victim awareness. Why is that?
I put in for it about 5 years ago, several times, and it just come up. Every time they bring it on the board, I put my name on it, and it just recently come up.
Well, so are you currently enrolled in victim awareness?
Yes, ma'am.
How long have you been in that program?
I'm on about a month,
How long does it last?
99 months, I think.
So you've just gotten into it, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, even without victim awareness, you should have, over the last 22 years, spent some time thinking about your crime and how that crime has affected so many people. So why don't you talk to us about the impact that your crime has had on the lives of your victims?
Well, first of all, I have so much regret and remorse for what I've done. I know I've hurt a lot of people. That's why I took these classes to help me change my way of living, and it has changed me.
Well, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the victims, huh?
I'm saying,
For
yes,
instance, one of your victims is wheelchair bound. Did you know that?
yes, ma'am.
And you know that he's a quadriplegic?
Yes, ma'am.
And you know that means he basically can't do anything for himself. Miss Mack, died. Correct? No,
No, ma'am.
Miss James died. And Miss Mack was shot and through her arm, but it entered into, across her body, and she suffered a lot from that. I mean, what thought have you given over the last 23 years of how those people's lives have been and their families? What thoughts do you have about that?
I think about what I've done, told them almost every night. I have great regret.
What do you think? When you think
Ma'am?
about it, when you think about it, what do you think? What are the thoughts you're thinking?
Think about how they're suffering, how I've hurt them, how much pain and misery I've caused them.
Warren, what can you tell us about Mr. Harris?
So he has worked, or did work several years with horticulture as a mentor. Attempted his GED on a couple of occasions. Looking back, then right up in 2019 and lost his Class A trustee status. He's currently a medium custody, and he works as an orderly on Main Prison East George.
Mr. Harris,
Yes, sir, ma'am.
I didn't mean to ask you about that DV you had in 2019. You've had 10, which is not a bad number, but you did have a write-up in 2019. It looks like for contraband. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
It's two separate contraband write-ups.
Yes, ma'am.
What were the contraband items?
Excuse me?
What were the contraband items?
It was some tobacco, smoking tobacco. And the other one was actually sugar, crystallized sugar, but they say it was PCP.
Well, I mean, they don't think they tested it in some way?
I don't know, but I know it wasn't PCP, ma'am.
You've got lots of opposition from the families and the victims involved in this case. From law enforcement, from the DA's office. You do have a lot of support from your nieces and nephews and acquaintances and co-workers. So I'll just sit back and hear what they all have to say. Mr. Johnson, that's all I have.
Mr. O'Shea.
Good morning, well, good afternoon, Mr. Harris, how are you?
I'm okay. How you doing, sir?
I heard the Warren Falco mention that you made several attempts to work on your GED. And evidently those attempts have failed. So why didn't you go back and try to get into the literacy program and work yourself up to a GED?
Well, I didn't go because I just was working and
I understand you're working, Mr. Harris, but the reason for your incarceration, and one of the reasons is your rehabilitation. And your rehabilitation is, the education is a very important part of that rehabilitation. If you ever get released, you need to find employment. I see no vocational programs, no literacy programs, and you failed at getting a GED. So what do you plan to do in the future to advance your educational status?
what I was, when I was in GED, I passed everything but math. And the instructor told us that if we didn't, for the quarterly testing, if we didn't pass it, we would have to get out of the program.
How long since you took the test for your GED?
Has to be about 2017 somewhere.
Have you
In that
worked
area.
on your math skills? Have you sought,
Yes, sir, I have.
okay, have you improved your math skills?
Yeah, I've have worked on it, but I haven't got back into school.
Don't you think it's about time?
Yes, sir, but there's a waiting list.
I'm almost sure that you've been in the program multiple times and you passed all the tests except the math test. I'm almost sure the prison officials will make provisions for you to get into the program so you can take the math part of that GED and get your GED. Am I right, Warren?
Looking at his educational history, the last time that he was, dropped from his GED courses were in 2017. And the reason behind that, is documented excessive absences. I would imagine at this point in time, he could probably get back into GED and work on, getting that math module passed. If that is where he, if that's the only thing he has left to pass.
So, but the reason given for dismissing him from the program was excessive absences.
That is what the documentation is saying, telling me here. Yes, sir.
Okay. And you told us, Mr. Harris, it was because you failed to pass the math part of the GED program.
Yes, sir. It, that's,
Why-
for me, not,
Why did you continuously miss class?
I wasn't missing class, sir. The only,
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. O'Shea. All right, so we'd like to hear now from the folks in support. Could we first hear from Ms. Suzette Harris?
You can stay right there. They can hear you.
Good morning. Thank you guys for having us here. I'm speaking on behalf of my siblings. My father, Larry Harris, has been incarcerated here for 23 years. Basically, I've watched him grow and mature in ways from me being his daughter. I've seen a tremendous growth in him. His attitude, his humility. Granted, I understand that he has done something wrong. We can't take that back. I know that he is remorseful for what he has done, and I do feel that he is rehabilitated in a lot of areas in which he wasn't before he came here. I'm just asking that you guys consider him and giving him a second chance to being released to society. That's pretty much it. I did write a support letter as well, so
You have
it's
it.
here.
Bobby Wallace, did you say Bobby Wallace? Mr. Harris?
Yes, I'm here. Yes.
You have to move down into the camera.
No, they can see, you're good right there, they can see you in the camera. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, I'm in support of Brother Larry Harris. I spent over 22 years in here and over like 5 years in the dorm with him. And I think it's important for me to explain and express the personal relationship I had with him, living and sleeping and going to the cafeteria to eat, and personalizing what we felt about what happened in our lives to get us to this point. And understand, because I've been in this position before, it's very pressurous and your mind run all kind of ways. But Larry is a very good person. And he is an antidote, actually. He's an antidote to the poison that's out on the street. And he can be a real asset to any community that he's blessed to be released upon. I've seen and witnessed many occasions where Larry had stopped something that could have been very disastrous because of the type of person he is. He carried a good spirit about him. He's my brother. We've been to church together. We sat on beds. We ate together in a child hall or the cafeteria. And I know from heart to heart that he's remorseful. And there's some things in our lives we can't take back. But we all experience some kind of anger that we can't control because of whatever reason. But the way we lash out is based upon the maturity at that time, how far you allow it to go. And I come away from New Orleans. And if the person is not important enough for me, and I know that they're an asset to society, I wouldn't be talking on this board. So I'm asking that you really consider the personalization of our relationship, because I know I'm better than any paper you got. Because I've been with him every day for years. And you can't fool each other. We know the true person. God bless you, and I ask for mercy for him. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And then here, Miss Jenna Cooley.
Yes.
If you step up to the podium so we can put you on the screen. Thank you.
These are notes I jotted on the plane and trying to decipher my handwriting. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. First, thank you very much for this important opportunity. In his life before Angola, Frankie had a unique talent. He was a professional master mover, which means he could be trusted and had the skill to move anything large or small that was either very fragile and or very expensive. One of his clients was a fine auction house in New Orleans, where he worked with a woman named Della Brand, who has joined us via Zoom. She is the one who introduced me to Frankie. She's living in North Carolina, and that's why she is not standing here with me. Several years ago, when I first visited Frankie in Angola with Della, I had no idea what to expect. The whole idea of going to visit someone in Angola was fascinating. The experience I actually had dumbfounded me. During our visit with Frankie, Mr. Harris was one of the calmest, most insightful, humorous, kindest gentleman I could remember meeting. He was inquisitive about our lives, but he was also generous in sharing his life stories. What blew my mind was how I felt after that first visit. I left feeling personally challenged to be more thoughtful, to be more appreciative. Because here was a man who was actively trying to live a meaningful, purposeful life while consciously paying a very serious debt for a very long time. From behind the walls of Angola, Frankie has remained close to his family. He has a large, loving, intact, what we call a good family. He would have not just their love and support, but he would have their active guidance in the transition into the outside world. Especially with, under the guidance of his daughter Suzette, who you heard from, she has been a force in her father's life during his entire incarceration. In conclusion, there are those who come before you whose arrival at Angola was a surprise to no one. Frankie's arrival was a shock to everyone. The last time I saw him, which was several weeks ago, we had a quiet moment. And he privately leaned over and he said to me, "You know, Jenna, when you see me, I seem just fine. But I want you to know that I live with what I did every single day of my life." What was meaningful to me about that statement is that it demonstrated conscience. Mr. Harris has conscience. I own an automotive business in New Orleans. I would be proud to have Frankie work with me. I have an apartment behind my house. I would be happy to have him live there. I am a mother. I am a grandmother. I am a business owner. I am an active member of my community. With all of my heart, I believe that society would be better served with Frankie outside of the walls of Angola than within the walls of Angola. I appreciate your time and consideration.
Thank you. Now we'll hear from the opposition. First, could we hear from Miss Betty Mack?
Amen. Jane is my daughter. She was my only child. She was married, but she thought she had time to have children. She didn't have any children. Both never lived to die on that street. February 22nd. I had stuff to say. I prayed for strength to say what he took from me. If he wanted to kill Vanessa, he could have found Vanessa at any time, but he knew Vanessa and Melissa, just like sister. And he wanted to make sure that he go to home. If she didn't die, she would hurt with the loss of my child. They gave him like, I don't know why do the criminals have more than the victim? Where's her rights? Where's my child's justice? It's not fair. Cause all this is stirred up, that knife is turning in me again, right now. I worked all of my life. I worked on the ground in the bank. I was a teller supervisor, ball teller, everything up to manage. And I had to get all out of my job because my customers would come and want to give me their condolences till I would just cry every day. So I had to give up my job. This is not right. My child can't come back. Why should he be there to live with his family, go home and not pay the price? He made a choice, and choices have consequences. And I think he ought to pay the consequences for staying here. I didn't want him to get the death penalty. I wanted him to wake up every day in that box and realize why he was there for murdering my child. And it was premeditated because he asked somebody to come with him to kill two women. He's a coward. He don't deserve to come out and be free. And I'm sorry. And if I gotta come back here every day, I'll come back here every day. Or somebody in my family's gonna come. Cause it's not right. I want justice for my child. What he took away from me, my legacy is in Providence. My child is not laughing. She can't get up. She can't get leniency. She can't get another chance. She's gone. It's not right. I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
She's gone.
Mr. Wheeler?
You see what he done. You're gonna put him back on the street. He asked him several questions. He don't go to class. What has he done? He done paid his debts to society. What he did? He done ruined our lives. He got a guy, that young man in a wheelchair. I mean, what does it say? That he can walk around free. The lady says she'd be proud to have him. Okay, well, you'll be proud to have him. I just don't understand why we here. Did the judge make a mistake when he gave him the time? Or y'all questioning the judge? That's what we doing here today? I know you have a difficult job, and I appreciate it, but I don't think y'all need to turn that loose. Y'all know what's gonna happen, because he can move some furniture, that's it, that's what he gonna do? That's not fair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Andre, is there any? Mr. Harris? Is
Yes, ma'am.
there a statement you'd like to make to the board before we vote? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, Mr. Meyer is on the line. I can't see you. Mr. Meyer, we'd like to hear from the DA's office. There you are.
Good morning, Randy Meyer, Assistant DA. Well, good afternoon, Randy Meyer, Assistant DA in Jefferson Parish. Our office has a strong opposition to Mr. Harris's request. It doesn't appear that he's been truthful with the board, both in his application and as well as some of his answers to some of the questions by Ms. Jackson. First off, he indicates in his application that he went to meet his ex-girlfriend to work some things out, and that he approached her, and it suggested that he approached her in a kind of a friendly way. The trial testimony, though, shows that he and a friend armed themselves. They hid behind a dumpster, and when Ms. Mack and her friends left the bar, they came out toward them, and then when they eventually shot him. Pre-parole investigation indicates that Ms. Mack was shot twice, but the trial testimony says that she was shot 5 times. He's had limited programming which is concerning. Most of the programming that he's had is prior to 2009. No vocational programming to help him get a job when he gets out. He hadn't completed his GED, where he was also, I believe, not truthful. The warden shows that the records indicate he had excessive absences from his GED program, which is why he was released, not because he couldn't complete the math. He was released or dismissed from that program in 2017. And since that time, and what, 6 years since that time, he hasn't shown that he's done sufficient work in math, if that was his problem, to again take the GED and then pass the math part of the program. This insufficient time served. I believe he's only served roughly 22 years for this offense, where we have 3 people who, one was killed and 2 people who were shot, and one's a quadriplegic, which is very concerning. And finally, of course, there's very strong victim opposition. So those reasons we are strongly opposed to his request.
Sorry, thank you. Mr. Harris, would you like to make would you like to make a statement?
I want to say I'm deeply regretting, I'm highly remorseful what I've done to the individuals, to Ms. Mack, to Mr. Lewis, and to Ms. Wheeler. I really apologize. I have so much remorse. I think of this every night, of what I've done to them, the pain, the suffering, the short dreams I have brought them. And I just ask them, if you can find it in their heart to forgive me for what I've done. I am truly a changed person. I thank God for it. I just want to be a part of the solution and not the problem. And I have great regrets for what I've done. Please, this is from the bottom of my heart. Miss Mack, Mr. Lewis, and Ms. Wheeler, please believe me.
All right, thank you, sir. Is the panel prepared to vote? Mrs. Jackson?
Mr. Harris, this case is a tragedy on so many levels. Apparently, you had been a law-abiding person, doing well in your job. And, for whatever reason, you allowed your emotions to take control. And the worst day of your life has become the worst day of many, many, many people's lives. When I just look at the magnitude of the harm, the number of victims involved, even the survivors, still suffer. And you really haven't done a lot to work on yourself. Just can't say that today is your day. You've only served 23 years of your sentence, and even though you're 74 years old, you committed this crime late in life, when you should have had the maturity and the judgment not to do what you did. So because of the magnitude of the harm, of the limited programs, strong victim opposition, and insufficient time served, my vote today is to deny your request for.
Thank you. Mr. Roshan?
Mr. Harris, you're simply not ready to be released. You've only served 23 years, insufficient time, and the damage that you did to the victims. You have not really sought to rehabilitate yourself. You have a lack of rehabilitation. You need to take additional programs. You need to get into that GED program again. Get some vocational skills. You've done none of that. Victim opposition, law enforcement opposition. For all those reasons, I deny your request.
Thank you, Mr. Roche. Mr. Marabella?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Harris, I agree with Judge Jackson as well as Mr. Roche and all of their comments as well. My vote would like us to be denied.
Mr. Freeman?
First off, I want to thank the victims for showing up today. It does help in making our decisions. Mr. Harris, you have a strong family support. You need to thank them because you can tell they're still behind you. But for all of the same reasons that my colleagues, I vote to deny.
All right, Mr. Harris. So the outcome of today's proceeding is your application for clearance has been denied, sir. Good luck to you.